I think everybody should get a hype man like Brad. So if everybody's in the right spot, we're going to do choose your own adventure or disaster. Internet, this is similar to a presentation from last year. I stole it from Cisco, so I believe in recycling. Let's get the boring stuff over first. I'm, like Brad said, I'm a senior solution architect, got a couple of kids, cats and a tortoise. Don't ask. I'll tell you more in a second. When building this slide, I put up some logos, because if you haven't worked with me before, you might want to know some of my bona fides. Just because I've got a gray beard doesn't mean I know anything. So that's some of the stuff that proves that I like to learn. I'm good at taking tests, or I'm stubborn, I'll just keep taking the test if I fail it. So that's recently, I've gotten really interested in security. So that's why this is kind of a passion for me. If you're interested in something, it's more interesting to you, and hopefully I can make it more interesting for everyone here. But when I was looking at this, I've been in scouting for a number of years. I thought it looked like merit badges, so I didn't think there was enough stuff there. My son went to Merit Badge University and took the Reptile and Amphibian Studies merit badge, and a week later, I owned a $500 tortoise and a terrarium, so I gave myself that merit badge. And then the following year, we put him outside, and he escaped, and Russian tortoises can move way faster than you think they can. So he went walkabout for like 4 days in my neighborhood, and we eventually found him, so I gave myself a search and rescue merit badge. And Gordon isn't helping me out with this comedic line here. He didn't do anything interesting this year, because tortoises don't do a lot. But I did end up, for like the third year in a row, put like 3,000 miles in my camper, so give myself a camping merit badge. Camper merit badge. There's a camping merit badge, and that's different. But let's get into it. Who remembers these types of books? Like anybody of a certain age has probably seen these books and gone through them. If you haven't had the experience, basically it's a book that starts telling a story and then gives you a choice. And then you choose what to do, and it says switch to page 34. And then you switch to page 34, and you go into the cave, and you explore the cave, and then you get eaten by the red dragon. And then you flip back and go, I didn't mean to do that. And you cheat, and you go back on, choose a different path. Don't lie, you all did it. So that's the basic of this talk. Cisco gave it as part of an XDR a tour they did, and I thought it was really fun and engaging. So I asked them if I could steal it, and they said yes. This is 2.0, so this scenario is completely different. We reworked it this year. So if you went to last year's, same premise, different scenario. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the scenario. We're going to talk about like the choices that we have, and then we're going to, in groups, so I'm glad it filled out a little bit in here, group up with a couple people. That's your team, and discuss the choices, and then as a group decide what you want to vote for. And then give a couple minutes to go through that exercise, and then we'll pick somebody to say who wants to do this and who wants to do this, and then we'll vote, and then we'll go on and continue on through it. So not all of these choices are real-world choices, and they're not the best choices. We have to boil it down to make it a little bit easier to go through this, because otherwise this thing would be too many choices to go through in a short time. So they may seem like basic choices, but I think still a good exercise. So before we begin, and you don't have to raise your hand, but who has a cybersecurity incident response plan? If you're a bank, you should have one. I know you have to have one. If you're not, this is talk is about thinking in that mindset, because you will need to have one at some point. If you don't have one, you're going to have an uncomfortable situation, and it's made worse. So who has gone through a tabletop exercise other than last year's session? Cool. So you have an idea of what this can be, and there's all sorts of these. There's incredibly technical ones. There's just high level, like who's going to do what kind of thing. It's good to do them in any case. They don't have to be technical. If you want to talk to the owner of the company or the management team, like, hey, what happens if we do this? Will you even consider paying the ransom? No, we'll never consider it. Okay, now you know something that if you're provided some options, that is not something that your business is willing to do. You have eliminated choices. It makes it easier to go through and select what's available. And the last is a warning. I will ask questions. Like, you do need to talk to each other. That's what makes this more fun, is to talk to each other and then call on people. If you chose one way or another, it doesn't matter. None of these choices are right or wrong. Just explain why your table decided to go with a thing. Choose a choice. So, story begins. All of this is fictional and or stolen from other things. So, our company is Dunder Mifflin. 60 employees, paper product distributor, about $300 million in annual revenue, based in Scranton. There's one IT support person, you. There is no team. It's just you. So there's no IT team, it's just you. But you do partner with a company for help desk services. So keep that in mind. There's nobody else to rely on. So Dunder Mifflin has recently been closing branches. They're having a tough financial year. Stopped all new IT projects, deployment of security services, and a conscious choice not to have cybersecurity insurance. That's important. And the last day of the quarter, of course, the busiest time. You're trying to get your numbers in, pump those numbers up. You notice that your internet is slow. The help desk, you call the help desk. They recommend that you reboot the firewall. Easiest thing to do is reboot the firewall, and that fixes everything, right? But it'll take the internet offline for a while. It's a busy day. It's the last day of the quarter. You're having financial issues just overall. High stress for everyone. Everybody's trying to close the end of the quarter, get their numbers done. That is basically our first choice. What do we want to do? So here are our choices. We can have the help desk try to determine why the internet is slow. You can just reboot the firewall. Or don't do anything. I'll take care of it later. Those are our three choices to go through. So now I'll put some minutes on the clock here, and then talk amongst yourselves. So if you're not at a table with other people, maybe turn around and work with the group next behind you. Probably 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll ask for who wants to do what, and then we'll vote, and we'll carry on. Late afternoon. Late afternoon. All right. So, what did your table decide? Who wants to vote on an option? Yeah.
You said reboot the firewall.
So why do you want to reboot the firewall instead of the others?
Well, we discussed because if it is a bottleneck at the firewall, hopefully causing the slowdown, hopefully that'll resolve it. And if it's not, that's going to give us more information. And we already contacted the help desk, and their recommendation was reboot it. Yeah, we can tell them go back and just keep looking, but I doubt they're going to come back with anything more than reboot the firewall. Because that's in IT. That's what I always tell them.
You got to reboot it 3 times before you call the help desk, right?
No, I didn't. I forgot to do that.
Exactly.
They do it in fixes at 90% of the time.
Okay.
If it's an intrusion, that's going to disconnect them, so they're going to have to fight to get back through the firewall again. So you're disconnecting the intruders if that's what the problem is. So doing nothing to me is the worst option.
Anybody have a different opinion? Yep.
I convinced my partner to be a little bit on the paranoid side and say that a reboot of the firewall could be the very thing that a hacker wants you to do, because they've already injected a payload and they're just waiting for something to happen.
Oh, like a write erase and waiting for you to reload?
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be evil.
We're choosing to ask the help desk to do some investigation.
Okay.
It's worth a limited amount of time to take to see if we can glean more information.
Okay. Anybody want? Yeah.
We also chose the light blue option because we figure it's better to have people doing stuff on slow internet than doing nothing because they don't have internet. And if we can find other solutions in other ways that saves people other time, that's a better option to me.
Sure. Does anybody want to wait? Okay. So we have those 2 choices. So show of hands, who wants to choose, have the help desk determine whether the internet's slow? Okay. And who wants to have the help desk reboot the firewall now? Good, I don't have to count. So we're going to go with have the help desk try to determine why the internet is slow. So the help desk looks at the issue. They report a lot more outbound HTTPS traffic, specifically than normal. The issue is tracked down to a workstation in the sales department, but that person who usually uses it is out of the office, so there shouldn't be any traffic on that computer. And then further looking, they find that the traffic is going to that URL. And then based on the odd website and the maxed out internet traffic, the help desk determines that someone is exfiltrating your data. They're stealing your stuff, which is causing your internet to be slow. You also have reports of a few workstations starting to come in that they've been encrypted. Help desk recommends getting hold of an IR firm immediately. Do you want to contact an IR firm? So, yes or no? You don't have cybersecurity insurance, so you're going to have to pay for it out of pocket. You're in dire straits financially as a company because you've been closing some branches. So, that's your choice. I suppose you could quit and just walk out of the building.
Give us an eject button.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. We'll do 3 minutes. Decide as a table what you want to do. Not in this scenario. All right. So, who wants to answer for their table?
I'm saying no.
You don't want to call an IR firm.
Well,
I mean, everybody would want to, but in this scenario, why would you choose not to?
in this scenario, having previous experience with this, if there's already a couple computers out there that are encrypted, that means they're already in and they're working on jumping around machine to machine to machine. Yeah, they might be in the servers, they might not be in the servers. We don't know where they're at right now. If we have to call an IR firm and talk them through what's going on, that's giving the intruders more time to be on our network. I want to see what our options are if we don't call the IR firm. Can we reboot? Can we disconnect? Can we do something else? Calling the IR firm is wasting more valuable time that the intruders have inside of our network.
All very fair. Does anybody want to call an IR firm? Why do you want to call a firm?
Because I want to get them in there as quick as possible to help mitigate what's actually happening. At the same time, I would be calling them, I would be unplugging the affected workstations that I know of from the network right away.
That's also
We
fair.
didn't get both options.
You didn't, there's not a ton of detail, because otherwise we could be here all day. So ultimately, do we want to call them or not?
Do we know how far away the IR firm is? We have to assume that they're not able to remote in because our internet's already slow. They have to roll a vehicle to get to us to do their mitigation. It's kind of unknown.
An unknown at this point, because you don't have cybersecurity insurance and you've never talked to an IR firm before, so you have no idea.
So, yeah, I would assume that IR firm, after they talk to their people and they spread around the information, go through their channels, we're looking at minimum half hour till they get a vehicle there if they're in the same city as you, maybe an hour.
Okay?
Until they can do something to help us.
We kind of looked at self-preservation too, since we're a shop of one. You know, calling an iFirm is the best option on your side, because then at least you can say, hey, I tried to get help, we're trying to figure this out versus I didn't think you guys would spend money, so I just trying to handle it myself.
Yep.
I guess I'm thinking, isn't there a legal, I mean, you're a company, so you have customers' information, so there's almost a legal requirement for you to contact somebody, a third party or intermediary. I mean, I guess from my standpoint, the first thing I'm doing is I'm pulling the plug to the internet. We're done. I'm stopping that. That's before this question. But then to me, I guess I'm thinking you have to have a legal reason, you have to have a legal requirement to call an IR for somebody like that. Because you're now talking about customer data, information that belongs to other people, not just your company.
Yep, depending on your business, there are different rules, regulations about who you have to notify. If you are required to notify, states are starting to make some rules about it. But if you're a medical facility, I think you'd automatically have to. If you're a state or local government, I think you'd be mandated to do it. But in this case, it's a paper company. If they're not holding any credit card information on site, they're not withholding to do anything, really. So,
I don't believe private firms are required.
no, I don't think so.
I don't think you're ever going to recover unless you have somebody external come in and help you scout them.
That's a fair point, too. You are betting that you can recover it, or so. What do we want to do? Do we want to call the firm, or do you want to not? Show of hands, who wants to call an IR firm? And who does not? You guys are getting... So we're going to call an IR firm just based on the vote. So the initial incident response firm, the initial block of labor is $36,000. Last I saw a quote, it's like $450 an hour times 40 or 80 hours just to get started. And how fast can you transfer $36,000 to somebody? With a PO, it's usually a PO. I don't know if you have credit cards that can swipe it. So sometimes it can take a day to get that contract in place so they can get started. So you're right that not even having somebody physically come to your location, just getting a remote firm started, it takes a lot longer than you think it will. So having understanding that and knowing what to do kind of ahead of that is important. So the firm gets, after the paperwork gets finalized, the firm gets started, they start deploying security agents, reviewing logs on the systems. Your internet is shut down for 2 days while they perform their initial triage activities. Devices are slowly allowed to come back on the internet throughout the next week. You're fully up and running again. The IR firm has determined that Toby from HR had brought in a USB drive that had his vacation pictures from Costa Rica on his work computer. It also had malware, and that's how they got in the system. So very important bit of information that if we did not have a professional IR firm who's used to doing forensics, we would not have known where it came in. So that's a really important thing because otherwise, at some point, you're guessing. So you caught the malware before your server data was encrypted. You had some workstations that were encrypted. But it appears the bad actors exfiltrated data from your network. Do you know what they have? Did they get Toby's vacation pictures? Did they get your tax information? Did you get your contracts? You don't know how much data they had or how much access they had. So the IR firm can do an investigation on the dark web to take a look at the data that's out there to see what was stolen, because usually the next step after somebody steals your data is they post a sample on the dark web to prove that they have it, to try to get you to pay for the ransom. In this scenario, the ransom's not really a part of this, but do we want to have the IR firm try to discover what information was stolen for an extra $25,000? And I made that number up, I don't know how much that is, but. So do we want to have the firm investigate?
Am I rich in this scenario?
You may be spiritually rich, but your company is cash poor. About 30 seconds. All right, so who wants to talk? Who wants to provide their table's answer? Yeah.
I would say yes, because with the investigation, I found out that it was Toby from HR's computer was infected. records, most likely social security numbers. You have insurance information and other information about those employees, where you could go into a lawsuit and realize that data was exfiltrated, and you didn't do anything to see what data it was.
Yep, so the idea is, it's Toby's computer, HR, it's probably HR information, we want to find out what they have. Everybody gets free credit reporting forever, just like all the other breaches. Does anybody not want to spend the money and investigate? You are just a negative Nelly. Why do you not want to?
Because being an IT person, we have a lot of the same resources to be able to go on the dark web and do the same kind of research and have probably as good an idea as an IR firm as far as what was sent out. The IR firm's going to have no more resources to be able to get all that data back if it's encrypted, or to bring all the data back. You know, they're not going to have any clue beyond what we have as far as exact information that's out there. The attackers, they're going to post very limited information on what they show that they have. So is that worth another $25,000 on top of the $36,000 that we just spent for them to verify what I can verify in a cash poor company? I'm going to say no.
Okay, and that's a valid point. Like, you likely can find out some of this information on your own, because they're not going to, it's unlikely they're just going to dump it out on the internet. Now, that can happen. From what I have seen, I don't do IR as a career, so the ones that I've been involved in, they'll usually have a sample, like a couple of files that are to prove that they have, and a file and folder listing. But the last time that they did it, I saw it, they just posted it all online. I don't know if they just went nuclear. The other thing that's very easy to assume is that anybody who does these tasks, they're good at their job. Just like any other slice of life. Some of these groups, threat actor groups, suck at their job. So their scripts don't work the way they expect it to. So I've seen a place that got ransomed, wasn't given an opportunity to even pay the ransom. The information was just posted online. So they're like, why would we even bother to pay the ransom? Because it's already been out there for 48 hours. Anybody could have downloaded it. Why would I pay you? So let's vote. Who wants to call a firm to have them investigate? I might have to count. Who does not? Oh, that's like 50-50. Let's go no. Okay. We're going to say no, because I can't count that fast. So you decide against having the IR firm attempt to discover the files that are exfiltrated. You save the $25,000, but you do not know what was taken. You can try to do your own investigation. Some of these IR firms, it's a weird business. They have contacts out there that will help them find the information. It's a weird deal. By not deciding to attempt to review the information that was stolen, your company is blind to potential ramifications of the stolen data. Your branch manager, Michael, thinks you're in the clear, but then you start getting contacted by your business partners about the breach. It turns out the bad actors started contacting your business partners and offering to sell them your information and not to release theirs. That is double extortion. So not only did they steal your information and try to, in this case, we're not having them pay, but they are going to extort the people whose data that you had on them. And in the medical field, they'll do it three ways. They'll ransom the hospital, they'll ransom the other companies, and they'll ransom the people whose records they have. It is despicable, is the word I'll use. So, because you don't know what information was stolen, you have no control if your customers or your competitors will buy the data. You may be at a disadvantage in future contract negotiations, and you've already started losing contracts. Additionally, you're not able, this got mixed up. We were able to determine where it came from at least. So that last line, don't worry about that. But this is not the worst ending that I wrote. So ultimately, we're out $36,000. We didn't pay the extra $25,000. There are ramifications for the data being stolen. That's the end of the scenario. How do you think we did? Are you happy with the results? I mean, anyone in the situation, there is no good way to be through this. But what do you think we could have done differently? I mean, have cybersecurity insurance, have firewall, like, of the choices that we had, what would you now would go back and do?
I would have pulled the plug originally.
Pulling the plug is
Reboot, whatever.
reboot the firewall. In the scenario, if they have control of a workstation, it just kicks back up again. So as soon as the internet comes back up, they start, this starts exfiltrating again because they have access to a system. And if it's something that somebody's actually monitoring, they may get an indication that something is going on and trigger something else. So I'm not saying any of these answers are wrong or right. Like I said, all of this stuff is different, but it's just, the scenario is built to give you an idea to think about. Last year was about ransomware and how to, what do you do with those scenarios? This year was talking about somebody stealing your stuff. What do you want to do if somebody grabs your things? So we didn't have to deal with a ransom, but kind of as we talked about, like there's requirements to report if you're getting ransomed, but is it even legal to pay a ransom? It depends. So this is an open source map of people who look for different regulations and will have, it's an eye chart, but red is illegal to pay, green is legal to pay, yellow is it's complicated, and orange is legislation's in progress to prevent payment. So those are state regulations. Not every state has one. And it's different for business, banks, financial, state and local governments. On top of that, your bad actor might be associated to a nation state or a terrorist group. You can't pay them money. It's against the law. So you may get yourself in federal problems if you pay and you get caught. But
So what was the best solution?
the best solution is always money's no object. IR firm, the whole thing, right? Like,
And how do we
Yeah.
come out if we pay the IR firm all this money that they want? Do we, like in this scenario, what's our best possible, what's the best outcome?
the best possible outcome is that you know the information's out there, that you can get ahead of it, and you can talk to your business partners, and you can internally, because this is a PR thing, like marketing and communications needs to be involved to start reaching out and give everybody free credit monitoring service proactively, because it's better to control the narrative than getting flooded with help desk calls.
I mean, you should do that anyway, no matter if it goes to pay.
Correct.
Pay the 25, we should assume that information was breached, and at that point, we're kind of hosed anyway, so you're better, like you said, then at that point, you're better off getting ahead of it.
Yep.
But in either case, you should always assume the worst, I think.
Yeah, so of the scenarios that I wrote, that's like the best one. So what can we do to be prepared? So understand your environment and your data and then document it. I've been involved in an IR for a customer who's like, oh, the only thing we need to recover is this server. We'll recover that server, and then it was, where's all the rest of my files? Because the other stuff was stored on a share of a archive server, and that server wasn't backed up, and it wasn't available. We couldn't get it back. So know where your data is and be able to have that documentation. Because if a firm like Network Center comes in, or the IR firm is like, where are your crown jewels? What do we have to focus on first? Store your incident response plan off network. I was sitting in a tabletop for a bank at one point, and they're like, does everybody have your incident response plan? If the building burns down, that kind of stuff? Yeah. Where's it at? In my desk. So what happens if the building burns down? Crap, was I think the answer. So, but until you go through like a tabletop, you don't get asked these questions. You don't think, oh, duh, I should probably print it out. And then it was like, oh, I have one printed out at home. When's the last time you printed it out? 3 years ago. Cool, that's worthless. We can't really do much with that. So have a communications plan, internal and an external plan. Because if you are worried about being compromised, you don't know if they have your email or your phones. So you probably shouldn't use your corporate email to send emails like, hey, this is how much ransom we can pay, or this is the software we're going to install on all the agents or all the clients, or because they could just be listening to all of that. I was on an IR where a bunch of people were on a phone call and there was somebody had called in with a cell phone and nobody knew what that number was. The meeting stopped until they identified who was on that call, because the IR firms, they will call in and listen to your plan if it's an open bridge. So paranoia is a good plan. And external. So if you do get compromised and you are customer facing, what are you going to tell your employees about what they should be saying, which is nothing. They should just not be talking, and all that information should come through a communication person at your company. So it's one message, but it's going to happen. Somebody's going to tell a cousin and uncle and aunt or whatever, and you're going to be on the news in short order. But if you can try to limit that, that's a better idea. Know your security contacts. In this case, we didn't have cybersecurity insurance, but if you have one, know how to get a hold of them. If you go, yep, we have cybersecurity insurance. Cool, we need to call them. Going to their webpage and dialing every phone number on there, it's not a great plan. I was in one, and we found the cybersecurity insurance page. We called it, and it was a number that wasn't monitored 24/7. They're like, oh, well, leave us a message. We'll call you in the morning. Luckily, the IR firm's like, no, that's not right. You didn't dial the right number. Try this number. And we got through to somebody in like 20 minutes. But if you don't know these numbers ahead of time and store them someplace where you know how to get a hold of them, you're Googling a lot, and that's not a comfortable situation. If you have your cybersecurity insurance company has a list of incident response vendors and you don't have one on contract, know what that list is and know how to get a hold of them. Same thing. Like know how to 1-800-FIX-ME, and because again, you don't want to get into a queue where nobody's listening. If you are in an industry where you have to report or you think that it is a nation-state threat actor, know how to get a hold of law enforcement. The FBI will help in some situations. I don't know exactly all the qualifications for one or the other, but if you are sitting local government, know how to get a hold of the next branch over. So they can at least give you some guidance or some assistance, and they will determine if they need to come and take over. Because if it's civil, water, industrial things, and it might shut down water and sewage and that kind of stuff, that's a big deal. And I wouldn't want to do that, be responsible for that. And then consider a cybersecurity IR firm on a retainer. A lot of the organizations will allow you to pay a fee, just like a lawyer retainer. Hopefully that shortens the time from, I saw the bang to starting to work on it. So you call, they start working on it sooner is the idea. So what can you do in practice? Educate your employees. It is easy to assume and get exhausted with doing like phishing campaigns and security things. Nobody wants to hear it anymore at this point in time. But ultimately, that's how something is going to happen. It's not some hacker in a hoodie typing away at your firewall. It's way easier to send 1,000 emails to get somebody to click on one. The odds are against us. This one, I believe really strongly that the longer I've been in IT is create a no-shame culture. If your employees have called their help desk and somebody is like, you're a dummy for clicking on this, or don't do that, or they are less likely to call if they do something again. They're your first line of defense and your early warning system. If they clicked on something and went, oh, I want them to call me, because then I can say, oh, that's fine. Okay, let's stop doing that. Remember their security training. But if they hide it, it could be all weekend that somebody has been on your system crawling around. And that is, you're already against the 8 ball when it comes to something like that. Complete a risk assessment. Various firms will do risk assessment. They will look at your IT environment and tell you where you're weak. Are you not doing your firewall's out of date and can't be patched? Is your internal security, your patching system isn't up to snuff. You don't have enough security controls on the data that your users can find. It'll be a technical assessment showing you what you need to shore up. But a business impact analysis is what happens if this goes down, or what happens if that system goes down. I was recently helping with an IR of a system. Luckily, it didn't break out this way, but it was payday. And it was a payday for about 600 people in a relatively low-income area. If they had ransomed like they had no backups, and it would have been bricked until they paid the ransom, if they could have. So that's 600 people who don't get a paycheck for I don't know how long. And that is a big impact. Now, if the kiosk machine, it doesn't show the menu on in the lunchroom, don't care. But figure out what the most important things are and make sure you know how to restore them and make sure you know where they are. So if somebody needs to come in and I need to start restoring servers and you have 20 of them, this one goes first. Do something like this. Have a tabletop exercise. It doesn't have to be super technical. Just getting management around the table to go, hey, this happened. What do we do? Who do we call? What do you want me to, like, if you're a sole IT, sole person in charge of IT, help give me some guidance, because we don't want to be figuring this out on the fly. What if you're not available? What if it's late at night? What, you know? So talking about it ahead of time can help you game plan. Do annual DR tests. It's not just restoring a file and folder. Make sure you know how to restore your systems. Make sure you can get them up and running and going in a timely fashion. And then understand normal. So in this case, the internet was slow. Sometimes that happens. But it was outbound internet HTTPS traffic, which most of the outbound stuff will be encrypted so you can't see what it is. Know that that is really weird to have a lot of outbound traffic on your firewall, or whatever the situation is. And the easy ones, implement multi-factor authentication. Everybody's been beaten about the head and neck about that for a long time. Follow good security guidelines. There's plenty of frameworks about how to build a secure system. Not super technical about install this patch, do this thing, but it's talking about asset management, all the boring stuff. Know what you have so you can secure it, things like that. Keep your systems up to date. Filter your egress traffic. Bob's computer in accounting doesn't need to do DNS checks out to the internet. It needs to do HTTPS. That's about it. So control what can go out. That frustrates everyone. It frustrates me when I'm at a place and I can't go and do a thing because I'm only supposed to do HTTPS out. But it helps limit the dumb, brainless things that are on your network that it might be trying to get out. Isolate your key assets. If you can put them in a separate network and start to restrict who can talk to those servers, it's a great plan. It's tough to do. It takes some effort, but it's good in the long run. Monitor vulnerability lists. If you know you have a certain type of firewall, CISA and a bunch of other organizations, you can get emails, pay attention to them, and see that this that has a bug. Pay attention to it. If it's a high secure bug, patch the thing, preferably as soon as is reasonable. Don't need to take the business down, but if it's bad, you need to take the business down to patch it because stuff is crawling across the internet all the time. Follow a good backup strategy. 3 copies of your backup on 2 different storage devices, one of which is off-site, now one of which is immutable, and with 0 errors. The last one's pretty hard. Servers do weird things, but gives you more chances, because the first thing bad actors are going to do if they're hands-on keyboard on your network, they're going to delete your backups. Then you have, makes it more likely that you have to pay the ransom. So here's some links. You'll have a chance to get the slide deck later about different bits and pieces that came into this presentation. So I would say 3 things. Try to make a plan. It doesn't have to be a great plan. It doesn't have to be more than like 5 steps. But at least start thinking about that plan and make it better every time you go back and touch it. Know your environment. If you don't know how many devices you have, how can you accurately secure what you don't know you have? And then try to figure out who you're going to call. If you have a cybersecurity incident or an IR firm, an organization like Network Center, we can help deploy agents. We can help with like the first 24 hours or 12 hours or something like that. But an IR firm gets involved, we take orders from them. We help deploy their agents. They're the ones who are in charge. It's just not our cup of tea. So thanks for coming. Thanks for participating and playing along. That's how to get a hold of me. We don't have a lot of time. I talked for way too long. But anybody have any real quick questions before they kick us out? Yeah.
Hold up.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Yes.
Checkity check. All right. Checkity check. Here we are. with like the rise of remote work and people, working in any state possible to get on your VPN or your systems and tools, are you seeing a rise in mistakes, or is?
Not so far, but it's definitely more possible. So somebody's working from home, the danger is, okay, you have a really secure device, but it's sitting next to all your kids' laptops and Xboxes and everything else. If somebody compromises one of those devices, they have all day to poke at your device. One of the Axa Financial got nailed because somebody compromised a Plex box and jumped to a laptop, and the guy was working from home, and he fired up his VPN, and it never canceled, it never closed the VPN tunnel, so it just opened, and over a weekend, that's how they hopped into Axa, that's how they gained foothold, that's how millions of dollars of damage happened. So
like, how do you secure like a Bluetooth speaker or a device or something like that?
the goal is not to have them on like the same network. There's different things you can do, different technologies where you make the laptop kind of as dumb as possible and you connect into a secure thing. So you're not really using Windows to connect in, you're connecting into a session, and that session is secure and the devices are secure. So it's a little difficult because everybody's connecting to their Linksys AP at home, and it's difficult to make home users upgrade their gear or do an audit. The last thing I want to do is manage 65 people's home networks on top of the network that I have to do now. So it's interesting. It's definitely an odd thing. So I think we have to vacate the room, or they're going to, whoever's presenting next is going to like get mad at me. So I can run out there. If anybody has any questions, let me know. I appreciate the coming and the interaction. Have a good day.